our next panel discussion. I trailed it a little bit earlier in the previous session, and we're now going to explore the topic of infrastructure and innovation, building the network of the future. Real-time payments, embedded stacks, and digital identities are fast becoming the backbone of modern finance. And as fintech matures and scales, its infrastructure needs to be secure, interoperable, and future-proof. We're going to be exploring questions around the technology and policy choices that will define the future networks and protocols of tomorrow, how the infrastructure can evolve to ensure resilience against fraud and cyber threats, and how incentives or frameworks are needed to encourage fintechs and startups to integrate with national and global infrastructure. So take me through some of those questions and more. It's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage our panelists. We have Neil Shonhard, the Chief Executive of MonetaGo, a global trade finance fraud prevention solution. Neil, please join us on the stage. If I could ask you to take seat number 2. We have Mohamed Alaali, Head of Strategy and Sustainability at the Bank of Bahrain and Kuwait, an organization with more than 50 years in retail, corporate and investment banking. Mohamed, if I could ask you to take seat number 3. Lily Liu, President of the Solana Foundation, a high-performance censorship resistance network that enables fast, secure digital transactions. Lily, welcome to the stage, and I invite you into seat number 4. And we also, and you've heard from her already today in the debate, we have Olena Clayton, Strategic Programs Leader at Google, specifically working with the Google Cloud Universal Ledger, a blockchain built for financial services. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage your panelists. Well, thank you all for joining. And I guess we'll start with the what, and we'll work our way through the how and the where and the who. In terms of the what, though, let's start with the subject about what technological and policy choices will define the networks and protocols of tomorrow. What do we have to look forward to in that regard? And I'll start, Neil, with you on that one.
Hello, everybody. So the future of technology infrastructure, and in our case, what we do, digital public infrastructure, will always be shaped by the choices that mostly governments make in terms of interoperable technologies, trust frameworks, and standardized APIs and things like that. So that those policies and those decisions promote data portability, regulatory harmonization, and trust frameworks, and not just domestically, but very importantly here, cross-border too.
Thank you very much. Mohamed, same question to you. What are the tech and policy choices that will define the next phase of this fintech revolution, if that's what we can call it?
So 40 years ago, TCP/IP has shaped what the internet, and without it, we wouldn't have had the internet today. And today we have cloud, we have blockchain, and we have AI, all shaping the future. And I think for cloud, it's really about interoperability between and communication standards between the different clouds. I think the standards are still not there fully to establish that. For the blockchain, again, protocols and governance around data privacy between the different chains and alignment on standards. And for AI, ethical standards and obviously agreement on explainability, bias, and all these ethical standards we need to have very clear technological and policy decisions around to ensure the proper utilization of the future.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Lily, over to you. We just had quite a provocative question up there about which is going to be the biggest disruptor, fintech or big tech. And I suppose in respect of that, what are the policy and technological choices that will define this environment, driven both by fintech and big tech? We've heard a lot about collaboration. Do you see this as a collaborative environment or a competitive environment?
I think that it necessarily has to be a collaborative environment, because in the age of digitization, what it does is it pushes people into ever more so a shared environment. We've seen that happen with technology, for example, with the internet as regards information, that we're now sort of all in a shared information layer, and that is more of a shared environment and shared infrastructure. When we log onto the internet, we're all using the same base layer packet transfer, right? And so I think there clearly are a number of opportunities around collaboration, but then what we're starting to see also, what I work in the blockchain world. I lead the Solana Foundation related to a protocol that many folks here may have heard of called Solana. And I think that this is similar to some of the globalization trends we saw over the past couple of decades, right? People are very, very pro-globalization for quite a period of time, and there's so many benefits to that. But then over a period of time, there's also a check and balance as to how do you balance the benefits of that without, in certain places in the world, sort of eroding kind of local sovereignty, local decision-making, and that type of balance as well. And so I think that typically when you have these very scalable technologies, the first phase is going to be about the excitement and all the wonderful things that it's going to do. Incredible access to basically limitless content, for example, talking to anyone and everyone at all times of whatever you want, right? Infinite choice. But then with that, at some point, you have to pull back from that and be very clear and explicit about the choices that you are making, because there are trade-offs with all of these things.
Thank you, Lily. Wonderful. Olena, tell us a little bit about Google Cloud Universal Ledger, and tell us about the technology and policy choices that you're making and what that's going to do to help define the networks and protocols of tomorrow.
Thank you, Robert. I will share with everyone that the same view that we've just discussed before this panel. That it's all about collaboration and innovation. So it's moving from this siloed, independent data systems and processes into shared infrastructure. And this requires not only technological shift, it's also about mindset shift. So it's something which is quite fundamental with the way the traditional financial markets operate. So with Google Cloud, for example, we are currently focusing on the product called Google Cloud Universal Ledger. It's private and permission technology which enables banks and any regulated institutions to offer faster, cheaper, and more transparent payments that are, of course, available 24/7. So we are offering the new possibilities for the regulated financial institutions to innovate and provide new services. It's a technology which has been built in Google Cloud by our engineers from ground up. Of course, with our engineers being experienced in reliable, secure, and scalable infrastructure. And because we know how to build at global scale, the scalability is not limitation of this platform. When you're thinking about making choices of today for the choices that still be relevant for the future, we are talking about the technology that can be combined with other products. For example, in Google Cloud, we are offering also the BigQuery, so analytical tools that are empowering this data that you have, AI, ML models, of course, and most recently announced payment agents as well, when AI is moving into the infrastructure from this analytical and predictive world. So in combination, if you're choosing the powerful provider for the future, this is an example of the choice you would be making.
Thank you, Olena. I want to talk about ecosystems that encourage innovation. And we are in a country here that I think is developing a reputation for creating such an ecosystem. And I wanted to ask Neil, and I'll come back to you on this, the importance of countries, jurisdictions, creating that enabling environment and what a difference that makes. Whether that's balancing regulations such that it encourages innovation, but also wards off some of the worst excesses that might be possible, with these innovative products. You work in this space, certainly providing resilience against fraud and other issues there. Talk to me about the importance of the ecosystem, the environment, the enabling environment for infrastructure innovation.
Okay, well, working in a public-private partnership space, it's very difficult to have fast enablement with a lot of governments. It's obviously a very bureaucratic space, and when we build digital public infrastructure that does analytics on vast quantities of trade finance and finance data, needs to be a very secure space. Now, I must say that not only the project that we're going to embark upon here in partnership with several government bodies, but Bahrain Fintech Bay have been particularly welcoming, I must say, in terms of enablement in a Bahrain sense. We've been completely bowled over by how impressive the cross-government pollination and communication is. So that's enabled us to come into this market, scale very quickly, open an office and do stuff here without the regulatory burden and time burden that there have been in other jurisdictions that we've gone into. Also, they seem to be a very digital and first and forward thinking sort of API-led and cloud-based infrastructure and government policies. Combine that with the aggressive or opportunistic almost, some of the Vision 2030 agendas and statements. All of these things create a really innovative and agile environment. And that's not just about Bahrain. They're also looking to scale our technology both across the region and sort of set an example regionally and globally as well. So I think and bravo Bahrain, but this has been a great event and we're very impressed with everything that we've had so far.
So no, speed and safety are can go hand in hand. You can still move fast, but you can still put in the guardrails.
Yep.
You've seen this in action, right? But you've also seen the other side of this, where you can get the balance wrong, and it can really stifle innovation.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we've been in 4-year sales cycles with other governments, and I think I should give credit to Ian, who's in the crowd now, the work he's endeavoured to do here. But that's only possible to bring that sales cycle down to less than a year, when obviously our value proposition rings true here, but they're ready and willing and able to adopt technology like ours to de-risk, financing across the region.
Thank you. Mohamed, your view on how the regulatory and enabling environment here and perhaps in other parts of the Gulf has been conducive to innovation within the infrastructure space?
Yeah, I think there are multiple elements to this, right? I think from a regulatory perspective, you have the regulation that enables the smaller players to experiment and play while maintaining safety for our customers as financial institutions. And I think the CBP has been leading the way globally in this.
Agreed.
We have very good regulation and sandbox environment that enables the smaller players to play. But then also when it comes to I think what you mentioned around the safety and security, or the elements around cyber, BBK has been a leader in this field, and we've taken a very long journey to get where we are today. And I can't tell you that we've reached the optimal level, but the vision is the core is properly protected. And so at the core level, and at the payments engine level, we have the multi-factor authentication. Nobody can get in, right? But at the edges, you're enabling the fintech players to connect with you through the APIs and through the sandbox. And then on top of this, you add kind of XDRs, or extended kind of detection systems, that enables us as a bank to understand the threat landscape and work with that. So you've got the regulatory environment, you've got the technology rails, and then you've got the kind of controls around the security. And we feel that this is the right model to drive the innovation.
Fantastic. Thank you, Mohamed. Lily, I'm sure you take a global view and you look around the world, and you would judge jurisdictions based on how successfully they are achieving that correct balance between regulation and innovation. What is it that you're looking for in terms of enablement and a conducive environment for the kind of innovations and technologies that you're bringing to market?
Sure. I think one of the core concepts underlying blockchain from the very beginning is this idea that that blockchain would help facilitate jurisdictional competition around the world. And so when we look to different environments that are more or less favorable to innovation, one of the unique features of blockchain is that it is one of the most mobile, highly skilled talent groups around the world. People primarily live on the internet, and as we've seen multiple times now, when there is a jurisdiction that oftentimes will overnight decide that not really for them anymore, then many of those builders will literally move within weeks, sometimes months, quarters, certainly within years. And so that demonstrates that there really is a mobility of a very high-skilled a group of talent that is willing to be flexible and just wants to be in an environment which is going to attract, facilitate, be constructive with innovation. And so I think that some of the, really when we look to different models and of economic development and even take our own inspiration as the Solana Foundation, because we really see it as we're a little bit the economic development board of Solana. Then what we look for is, how do you attract talent? How do you help develop talent? How do you help facilitate talent? So attract the best talent that you can and give them the resources, the ability to focus, and give them the sort of ability to innovate and try to bring those builders to, in our case, Solana. And so when we kind of map that into different jurisdictions around the world, then clearly there are some that are very front foot forward on those similar types of ideas. Right? How do we attract talent? How do we make it easy for them to locate here? How do we make it easy? Very, very technical things, getting office space, getting visas, relocating a family, schools, right? Just very nuts and bolts life things that matter to people on one hand. And then on the other hand, yes, there's about building a community, making investment available, building accelerator programs, and building some structure around that community, that scaffolding for that talent formation to actually take place. So those are some of the things that I think you can actually find in a number of different places around the world. Certainly not everywhere, but ultimately every country around the world can never have enough of talent formation and or capital formation. Very few have either one, and even fewer have both. So I would say it's probably a handful, maybe on single hand, of jurisdictions around the world that have over centuries been able to sort of make that loop happen on both talent formation and capital formation. And now the sort of grand experiment that we're in is, can you do that on the internet? Right, and form that first on the internet and then have that manifest more physically in different jurisdictions around the world, but sort of the up-funnel talent pool and capital pool that are actually being first on the internet before it kind of selectively, as desired, as permissioned, as attracted, then distributes itself in different jurisdictions around the world.
Can I ask you to name names? If you could tell me who's getting it right in respect of both aspects that you've just mentioned there. I mean, are you willing to say, look, these are the places we should be looking to. These are the people that
Certainly.
Are exemplifying.
Certainly. I'm happy to name names, and I do not pretend that I'm comprehensive in my worldview. I'm always looking to learn more. That's actually why I'm here in Bahrain for the first time, to learn more. But I think one of the large ones to create a contrast is the United States government before and after November 2024. It's a very clear one, 180-degree change. Would you like to be a leader in the future of digital finance, or would you not? And so I think we've all observed how transformative that has been, not just for the United States, but then, of course, the impact globally from there. That's the United States. It's a little bit of a unique and very impactful circumstance on its own. Certainly another one would be here in the Gulf region. I live in Dubai, so I think the UAE has been, in a 2-year period, went from having a little bit of, let's call it the NFT trading community, to now being one of the 2 hubs for crypto in the world. Recently, I was in Kazakhstan last week, and the central bank has decided to go forward with supporting a stablecoin. And that's not something, not an idea they came up with last week, last month, last year. They've been studying this for the better part of a decade, right? And have been very concerted in their efforts to support digital AI and sort of the future of fintech and Web3 in their economy. And I think there's also a number of different efforts around the world. So for example, in Bhutan, they're building a special economic zone, the Galafu Mindfulness City, with an effort to, over time, can that be the Singapore of South Asia, right? Of course, there's Singapore itself, which has had, I think some shifting perspectives on if and how to, what parts of crypto to sort of welcome to Singapore. And historically, there was also Hong Kong, which also has come in and out. And I think we're actually proactively always looking for those jurisdictions. But those are some of the ones that I think are top of mind right now. And I also think that United States, the big one, has started to accelerate the way for many others.
Thank you, Lily. I'll come to you, Olena, in a second, but Mohamed, you just raised your hand.
To say I think, look, obviously there's a big drive towards the innovation in digital assets, and obviously post-November 2024, we've seen a thrust in the US, but still, it's a very small percentage of the total financial systems, right? So if you bring this to mainstream, to answer your question around balancing the regulatory frameworks, you have few regulatory frameworks that are critical globally, right? You've got the AML, you've got the KYC, you've got the FAT regulations, you've got the data privacy. Across the board, these are critical things across the board, right? So for you to bring these technologies mainstream, you need to get these right.
Yeah.
And I think at BBK, today we've invested heavily in building a very strong core compliance system that at the core meets the regulations, but then also provides us with the flexibility in different regions so that we can. And then once we get that right, our CEO always says, let's get compliance right, then so we can do business, right? And once we've got that right, I think we can accelerate the adoption of the digital. And I think we already have very good relationship with the crypto companies, but I think we're still not full speed.
Yeah, thank you, Mohamed. Olena, when Google looks around the world and thinks about where it could deploy its proof of concepts, where you could establish a blueprint for digital trade that could be replicated across other global markets when they're ready, what do you evaluate and where are you landing with some of those decisions?
Yeah, thank you for this wonderful question. So what we are seeing right now is that in some countries, innovation and regulation are not exclusive and not sequential anymore. So it's not about the organizations first developing the products and then asking regulator for approvals. It's really building in those conversations from the very first step on the journey. As an example, like with Bahrain, we know that it's very regulatory friendly environment when the industry works very closely together with the regulator. So the discussion starts before even the POC and the concept stage.
And you're doing some work here as well, right, in Bahrain. What have you got in the pipeline here at the moment?
Yeah, so we've just launched a pilot of Bahraini dinar on GCUL. We have partnered with Bahrain Fintech Bay. Thank you so much for your leadership and support.
That's 2 shout-outs you've had for Bahrain Fintech Bay now as well.
They're very popular.
And the participating banks, we had 3 participating banks leading in Bahrain, NBB, BBK, BISB, and 2 of their customers, Alba and Babco Energies. And we completed this pilot in record time, and that's the reason we are here in Bahrain, because this is really our innovation launchpad for GCUL, where we can quickly get this technology tested, and this is our foundation now for planning to move into production, starting from Bahraini dinar, but most importantly, moving into cross-border payments where most efficiencies can be found. So we're moving via Bahrain to GCC region, and most importantly, beyond, we're looking at some of the pilots globally right now. It's very exciting. It's exciting to be here. We've just completed this pilot and really looking forward to what comes next here with with Bahrain.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bahrain.
So that's all about opportunity, but let's also consider risk. And Neil, I'll come to you here in respect of a question about how infrastructure can evolve to ensure resilience against, in your instance, I guess, fraud. Also, we might consider cyber security, cyber threats as well, while still enabling rapid innovation. What is it that, what are the things that you can put in place to ensure that you guard against the worst of those downside risks?
So you have to balance resilience and agility by adopting things like zero trust frameworks and technology stacks. So actually we use Google. We, as a company, built a global interoperable risk mitigation network for Swift, and that's on Google, actually, their confidential computing environment. Combine that with real-time threat and fraud intelligence, and then modular interoperable systems, and then you're going a long way to sort of tackling that. Policy frameworks, obviously, that support secure data sharing as well is critical in that as well. So long story short, if you're not agile, you're more of a threat than you already were. So that's kind of one of our mottos.
Thank you, Neil. Lily, to you. I read something interesting in your organization's profile around censorship resistance. Can you tell me what that means?
Certainly. Censorship resistance means that no individual party can shut it down. And so that's what we see on the internet today. No one can shut down TCP/IP. There's certainly been many efforts to control, monitor, filter, but ultimately what you've seen, I think, in probably the best case in Bitcoin is there's no ability for any one central party, or at this point, really even any coordinated, reasonably coordinated set of parties to say we're going to turn Bitcoin off. People have tried, you can't really do it. And you've had very large actors say, okay, well, all mining needs to leave our borders, and even then, where to go? It just redistributed to other parts of the world where you have reasonably priced energy, and that's actually a lot of the world. And I think that's really important for foundational infrastructure, because if you're going to have billions of people. Today, there's 5.5 billion people who use the internet. And certainly amongst those 5.5 billion people, you're going to have a very wide range of what people want to do, what people's preferences are. Many of those are going to be conflicting in all sorts of different ways. And so as foundational infrastructure, you have to be sufficiently neutral. And part of that neutrality is no any one party can censor, control, turn on, turn off at will the availability of this underlying infrastructure. And so that's, I think it's become a bit of a memed term from some of the early days of blockchain. But I think about it quite simply as, why are we all comfortable using TCP/IP? Because everyone uses it, and it's kind of data neutral. Why are we all comfortable using HTTP? Why are we all comfortable with using Linux, right? Because we trust that it is open, neutral, verifiable, and sort of sufficiently serves the foundational infrastructure needs of practically everyone on the internet. And so I think that there are differing standards here, where if you are TCP/IP level sort of infrastructure, that's a small set of blockchains, or if you're blockchain a little bit more sort of at the application level, these are very different things. And so, while people will use the term blockchain to refer to sort of all of the above, I think ultimately when you're sort of making actual decisions and thinking very deeply about this, it's important to differentiate those types of things. Some of them are going to be more oriented around an application, and others seek to be, let's call it a little bit more TCP/IP to Linux foundational infrastructure.
Thank you, Lily. And Olena, just talk to us a little bit about Google's commitment to de-risking platforms and ensuring that cyber threats and fraud is minimized.
Yeah, so we've got AI ML platforms that also that are looking to actively detect the fraud and potential anomalies. And what Neil already mentioned, that we've got securities built in and resilience is built in by design into our products. So when our engineers are building the products, they already know that they are in the wrapper, which is already secure and resilient by design.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Mohamed, let's focus back in on our region here and think about how countries in the Gulf can establish a model that perhaps the rest of the world can follow for fintech integration. Do you get the sense that the Gulf can be a real leader in this regard?
100%. I think we're already doing great. So shout out for all the regulators and the GCC. But I think this is a fundamentally critical opportunity for us to take it and lead globally. And I think, one, we need common agenda, because each country currently has their own agenda. Can we bring it together, create kind of an overall overarching vision of how we can work together to achieve it? Two, I think regulatory frameworks, if we can create some unification and interoperability between these different frameworks and regulatory frameworks around blockchain and stablecoin and all of that. And I think three is really having common rails. Bahrain, again, we've led with Benefit Pay, our EFTS, but then there are a couple of ones coming up like Afaq and then Buna. But how can we create a common infrastructure for payment and maybe think about CBDC in that way, right? How do we create something that is common across the board in GCC? But then how do we enable the fintech integration across the board, right? Today we're working here in Bahrain, how can we across border create that fintech integration so that fintechs can integrate with different banks in the region?
Is there meaningful pan-GCC collaboration? Are there good communications between the GCC countries, or is it as competitive as it is cooperative in this respect? Does everyone want to be the leader in this space?
No, I think there is a lot of collaboration. I've personally attended a pan-GCC kind of banks forum where we were discussing the agenda and the challenges and all of that. I think it's there, the discussions. We can do more of unification and more of kind of common road mapping of strategic initiatives. But there is a lot of collaboration and discussion, and I think maybe the CBB or kind of Bahrain FinTech Bay can speak more around these elements. So creating, I think, the agenda regulation, the rails, the integration, the sandbox standardization can help us take that leadership position.
Thank you very much. You mentioned the word sandbox there. Now, tomorrow I'm running a session called What Comes After the Sandbox, but perhaps let's just do a little advert for that here. And perhaps, Neil, I'll start with you. I mean, how do we encourage fintech to move from experimentation to operation to achieve scale in a sustainable way? What is it that is required in order to take us from the sandbox into the real world?
So if I may step back and just
please
comment on Mohamed's, one of the initiatives that we're embarking on here is building digital public infrastructure in a public-private partnership with various government bodies, and Bahrain Fintech Bay, again, another shout out, has been instrumental in that. That's actually a collaboration globally, but Bahrain is leading the implementation for the region here. We're already built infrastructure in countries like India and Singapore. Bahrain's leading that for the region. There are two other central banks and governments involved in that project here. So there are initiatives going on, and this is where what we do aligns with the various Vision 2030 statements and agendas for financial inclusion, SME empowerment, and things like that. So we're very excited about that. But getting past, coming back to your point or question, how do you take it from proof of value, proof of concept to actually scaling? Well, that's dependent largely on the value proposition, of course, and the effectiveness of that POC. We've seen in peers in trade finance and finance have a really good value proposition, but execute upon that quite poorly, potentially compromising on the compliance and risk mitigation piece. When you're dealing in finance, as we all are, that's something you cannot do. And even if you have got the best technology, the best tech stack, and the best team and the best products, things like that can fall over.
So that's sometimes where it falls down.
Not in our case, but I've seen very good companies fail because they tried to cut corners. And that's where these regulatory sandboxes, if adhered to correctly, are very important to foster in a sustainable and future thinking or future-proof way innovation in technology and trade and finance.
Thank you. Mohamed, you wanted to add something to that?
I think there are two critical elements that, first, also facilitating the dialogue and the continuous testing, right? And I think EDB is doing a great job. This is one of the events that we're doing, right? But then also the funding. All of this becomes talk. If you don't have actually, the energy, the fuel for the fintechs to drive. And I think in Bahrain, Tamkeen is doing open innovation, corporate accelerator programs, trying to push for these things. But I mean, you need multiple elements to make this work.
Just to add to that, that's just going back to the point I made about Bahrain being Bravo Bahrain. Shared directives across government bodies is what I think this country is leading, at least regionally, if not globally, in that concept, so that everybody's aligned.
Yeah, and it's easy to say that government departments should be joined up, but they're not everywhere.
Well,
right?
No, painfully so in other countries.
Okay, fine. Lily, just your thoughts then on scaling and on moving from experimentation to operation, whether that's from an individual corporate perspective or from an ecosystem perspective. How does that acceleration happen in a sustainable way?
I think first of all, you have to have a 10x value proposition. Saying something is a little bit cheaper, instead of interchange of however many bips, now it's 50% the cost. It's good, but I don't think that any of these really foundational, huge technology trends are about. Even, I think when you go to 2 or 3x, many people are happy with that, but that's not enough to really sort of move a network, to really sort of move foundational infrastructure. And I think the reason why I've been interested in blockchain for such a long time is because I think there are certain areas where it really presents a 10x opportunity. There's certain ways that you can think about that. The number of people that can that can participate in the same market. Today, at the wholesale level, you've got dark pools with 10, 20 different counterparties trading in it. And now you can literally co-locate 5.5 billion users and all of their assets on the internet. That's pretty cool. And so if that's maybe the longer term theoretical future, then I think if we think near term in the next 1 or 2 years, then what are those specific use cases that really present 10x value to market participants? That could be in a B2B setting, that could be in a B2C setting, that could be also a C2, like a P2P setting. And I think that's one of the reasons why people have focused around the world so much on money movement, stablecoins issuance, asset tokenization, those types of things. I think they actually have a very real and sort of hugely scalable, horizontally scalable value proposition. And what is 10x about that? Well, yes, there's money movement. I actually think that's good, but I think it's not really good enough, actually.
Right.
It's about cost. That's about cost savings. I think the real opportunity is if moving money is now adjacent to every savings, every investment use case, which is now available to anyone who even has a fraction of a dollar sitting in an online wallet, that means everyone can participate in literally any financial market. That means that that means that moving money is not just about I'm paying someone settling a bill. It means that every time you move money, I could pay someone, I could lend it, I could put it in a credit market, I could put it in a yielding vault, I could buy a stock, a US stock today, I could buy a Bahraini stock tomorrow. And that is where money, which is a social network, now gets supercharged because now all of your money has infinite possibility attached to it. All of the use cases and the whole range of assets globally. And I think that's the value proposition.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Lily. And so, look, Olena, last word to you. It's the benefit of sitting on the end. And I suppose my question to you is the sort of the pilots and the work that you're doing here in Bahrain. What, in your judgment, will success look like? What is it that you'll be looking for in order to judge the scale up of these projects a success?
As for us, first of all, when we are starting the pilot, we are not starting the pilot for the sake of pilot. We are always starting the conversation from what will be the final benefit for the client, what will be the benefit for the organizations, for financial institutions, and how do we adopt these technologies to realize these benefits at scale. And then we start this planning from what we call at times phase 1 or phase 0 even, as starting from the pilot, which is fundamental milestone that enables organizations to get familiar with each other's technologies, to see the ease of integration, and also start these in-depth discussions, working closely with the regulator, setting up those work streams which are additional to the technology change only, as we know that legal is involved, compliance, communication, the whole customer journey communication. So it's so much more than just technological aspect when we are moving from the POCs and those pilots to the production. So for us, scaling into production and scaling globally is about having these plans in mind initially, and of course the partnerships are really important to us.
And does that mean driving additional participation in these pilots? I mean, is it a small group at the moment? Are there invitations out there for others to join? How does it work? How do you grow that?
Yeah, so we started from the small pilot, but right now where we are in Bahrain, we have completed the successful pilot and now are open for other banks and other organizations to join. So please do speak to us if you want to be the part of that journey and you want to be in our plans, in our roadmap to roll out a GCL, so your customers can benefit and indirectly you could benefit as well.
Okay, so we're finished on an invitation there for you to get involved, just as the clock has run down to 0. So nicely timed, everybody. Thank you so much for your contributions and your thought leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking Neil, Mohamed, Lily, and Olena.
Thank you.